There is a silence within you that no noise can disturb, a stillness that exists beneath your thoughts, beneath your fears, beneath your endless search for something more. This is not something you need to create. It is something you have forgotten. Many people hear the word nirvana and imagine it as a distant place, something mystical, something reserved for monks on mountaintops. But nirvana is not a destination you travel to. It is a state you uncover when everything begins to fall away. It is not the addition of something new, but the removal of what was never truly you. There was once a man who spent his entire life chasing happiness. He pursued wealth, relationships, recognition, believing that peace would arrive once he had enough. But each time he reached a goal, the satisfaction faded, replaced by a new desire, a new chase, a new emptiness. One day, exhausted, he sat in silence and asked, "Why does nothing ever feel like enough?" And in that moment, something shifted. For the first time, he stopped chasing and started observing. The Buddha taught that suffering does not come from the world itself, but from our attachment to it, our need for things to be different than they are, our resistance to change, our identification with thoughts that are constantly shifting. Nirvana is what remains when that attachment dissolves. Imagine holding onto a rope, pulling with all your strength, struggling against something that resists you. Your hands ache, your body tenses, your mind becomes consumed. Now imagine simply letting go. The struggle ends instantly. The rope did not change. Your grip did. This is the essence of liberation. Nirvana is not about escaping life, but about seeing it clearly. It is the realization that everything you cling to, pleasure, identity, control, is temporary, and that your suffering comes not from losing these things, but from believing you needed them to begin with. There was a monk who asked his teacher, "What does nirvana feel like?" The teacher smiled and said, "It feels like nothing, and that is why it is everything." At first, the monk was confused. How could nothing be everything? But over time, he began to understand. The nothing was not emptiness in a negative sense, but the absence of craving, the absence of fear, the absence of the constant noise that once filled his mind. And in that absence, there was peace. You see, most people are not disturbed by life itself, but by their thoughts about life. They replay the past, fear the future, and rarely exist fully in the present moment. The mind becomes a storm, and they mistake that storm for reality. Nirvana is the end of that storm, not because life becomes perfect, but because your relationship to it changes. You no longer grasp at what you like or resist what you dislike. You begin to move with life rather than against it. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. It does not mean you stop acting. It means you act with clarity instead of compulsion. And perhaps, most importantly, it does not mean you become someone else. It means you finally see who you are without the layers of illusion. So how do you move towards something that cannot be chased? You begin by observing. Observe your thoughts without becoming them. Observe your desires without immediately acting on them. Observe your fears without letting them define you. In that observation, space is created, and in that space, freedom begins. This path is not about reaching perfection, but about releasing what is unnecessary, moment by moment, breath by breath. Over time, the things that once disturbed you lose their power. The mind becomes quieter. The need to control fades. And what remains is a sense of calm that does not depend on circumstances. That is the beginning of nirvana. It is not a sudden transformation, but a gradual awakening, a return to something that has always been within you. So as you continue your journey, ask yourself, what are you still holding on to that is creating your suffering? And what would happen if, just for a moment, you let it go? Because peace is not something you find at the end of the path. It is what appears when you stop running,